Ladies and gentlemen, it is now 6:34 p.m. and a quorum of members is present, so the meeting of the Board of Education of the School District of New Berlin is called to order. Please call the roll.
Ms. Crosby?
Here.
Mr. Helmer?
Here.
Ms. Connick?
Here.
Mr. Kurth?
Here.
Ms. Schultz?
Here.
Mr. Seidel?
Here.
Ms. Wondricek?
Here.
I would entertain a motion to recess to closed session.
Madam President, I move to adjourn into closed session pursuant to Section 19.851C, E, and F of the Wisconsin statutes to consider A, the approval of closed session minutes of February 27th, B, the employment, performance, and compensation matters pertaining to staff, C, to discuss and approve the 2023-24 employee wages.
Second.
Will return.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Kurth and a second by Mr. Helmer. Please call the roll.
Mr. Kurth?
Yes.
Mr. Helmer?
Yes.
Ms. Crosby?
Yes.
Ms. Connick?
Yes.
Ms. Schultz?
Yes.
Mr. Seidel?
Yes.
Ms. Wondricek?
Yes.
We're moving into closed session. We return to open session around 7 o'clock.
Price of other advertising.
It is now 7:10, and we are returning from closed session into open session. In recognition of the serious and important nature of our efforts here, we will join in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. For all those who are able, please rise. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now for those who wish to prepare for the meeting, we will have a moment of silence. This is a public meeting of the Board of Education. Prior to this meeting, notice was given to the public last Friday by providing the agenda to the city library. The agenda was also posted on the district website. A copy of the agenda was forwarded to the Journal Sentinel, the Waukesha Freeman, and the Waukesha Now, all of which have filed requests for all public notices. Make sure I'm in the right spot here. So we're going to start this evening with a recognition for our outgoing member, Chrislyn Holiday Wondrachek. Chrislyn was first elected to the board 6 years ago in the spring of 2017. During the time she has served as a board member, she was a member of various committees, including at one point chairperson of the Finance Committee. She was also a past CISA 1 delegate, and most recently the board's representative to the Wisconsin Association of School Boards, WASB. As our WASB rep, Chrislyn attended events such as Day at the Capitol, where she had the opportunity to hear from and meet with legislative leaders about top issues and needs facing our district. She also attended the annual state education conference, where, as our representative, she studied and voted on WASB's proposed resolutions during its annual delegate assembly sessions. Throughout her multiple terms, Chrislyn brought an important voice to our meetings and generously shared her legal expertise as an attorney, pro bono, on numerous matters that came before the board. Aside from serving on the board for the past 6 years, additional contributions Chrislyn has made to the school district of New Berlin community include serving past terms as vice president and president on the Orchard Lane Parent Faculty Council, establishing New Berlin Eisenhower Junior Lions Youth Girls Volleyball, a feeder organization for the Eisenhower Volleyball Program, and donating generously over the years to various community fundraisers. Congratulations on your tenure as School District of New Berlin board member. Chrislyn, we thank you for your service, and we do have this special award here for you as a remembrance of your time on the board and our appreciation.
I thank you so much. And thank you, Janet. That's I appreciate that very much. I'm a little verklempt. This has really been a labor of love for me. It's always been really, really close to my heart to do this job. And I really am a little emotional about it. I just, life got a little bit too busy for me and I can't keep doing it. But the only thing, I was thinking about this a lot. And the thing that I will say to my board members that are going to be going on and doing this, Amy, and all of you, is I hope that in moving forward, I hope you always all remember that the center has to be our kids. It has to be our kids, because that's why we're here. And if you come back to that, if you always come back to that one notion, how does it affect our kids? What can we do for our kids? That's our reason for being. And so if we can do that, if we can stay true to that mission, if we can all do that as in concert, I think that all the kids in New Berlin will benefit. And my hope is that you all keep doing that. So thank you for what you do.
All right. Thank you. And we have privilege of the floor next. We have a couple of people to speak. Just a reminder that meetings of the board are conducted for the purpose of carrying on the business of the schools and therefore are not public meetings, but meetings held in public. This portion of the meeting is an opportunity for you to come and voice your concerns to the board, so please do not be offended when we quietly listen. We may even take notes. We do not immediately respond to your questions and comments. This is a time for you to talk and us to listen. Thank you for coming to voice your comments and concerns. When I call your name, please step up to the microphone, address the chair, and state your name and whether or not you're a resident in the school district. Each presentation is to be restricted to a maximum of 3 minutes. Privilege of the floor will be limited to 1/2 hour. Presentations are not to be designed for purposes of engaging others in a debate in this forum, discussion of certified, classified, or professional personnel, or of individual Board of Education members shall not be considered an appropriate topic for this forum, and the speaker will be ruled out of order. First up, I have Scott Yench.
Hello, my name is Scott Yench, and I am a resident of the City of New Berlin and the New Berlin School District. Over the past 6 years, I have been fortunate to see many positive changes happen in our school district. We were facing a mounting debt crisis that wasn't known about or discussed much outside of the annual meeting. We now have a fraction of that debt that we did then. It's being discussed regularly and openly, and there are better processes and staff in place to help us manage it into the future. We face the consolidation of our high schools and middle schools and the closure of an elementary school. With leadership and a focus on facts and honest discussion, we avoided those steps which would have weakened us. We face declining enrollment and the budgetary constraints that come with it. By utilizing open enrollment seats, we have increased our enrollment and stemmed the tide of funding leaving with the students going elsewhere. We have seen stronger leadership through example by enforcing greater ethics in meeting procedures. The board is now more transparent than it has been in the past. The bar was literally raised. We replaced disorganization with intentional actions. We have committees which increase the participation of the staff, the board, and even the public, which I believe is very valuable. When the pandemic hit, there were voices that urged safe environments for our students so that we could keep schools open as much as possible. We succeeded when other districts struggled. Even though all was not perfect, we kept trying and focused on the students and our staff. For 6 years, I have seen these and other positive things happen. I would like to thank Crislin Holiday Wondercheck both personally and on behalf of a grateful school district. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Ann Slavlinski.
Hello, Ann Shaflinsky, district resident. Not all superheroes wear capes. Some wear high heels and cute shoes. For every 10,000 voters who complain about how things are, I think there's probably 20,000 that are not even paying attention. Maybe there's 1,000 who wonder, what would they change if they could? But then there's one who actually steps up to do the hard work of serving and actually making things better. So an outgoing board member accomplished a great deal in 6 years on the New Berlin Board of Education. When she suspected she could make a difference here on the school board, she ran for a seat, and from that moment, she was all in. She faced every day with integrity, which I admired when I agreed to serve as her campaign treasurer. When she first ran for school board back in 2016, she surprised district officials when she properly claimed her spending and filed all of her required campaign finance reports. We were told that no one had ever done that before. So in a sense, our district staff had kind of learned how to do the state reporting with us. After she did this, community members obtained her reports through FOIA requests and publicly harassed her and some of her donors. But doing the right thing and following campaign laws was never in question. She arrived here dedicated and prepared to do the work, bringing new ideas to make this governing body better, and in turn making our schools better for our kids and the staff, and our district better for our taxpayers. But I'd like to point out what she did for the rest of us in the community. A wise woman once said, "People who are truly strong lift others up. People who are truly powerful bring others together." Your board member elevated awareness about what was happening in our schools and with the budget. She prompted discussion. She made people notice and care and rally around ideas and even attend meetings. She gave people a voice and made them feel heard and allowed constituents a view into the important decisions and work of this governing body. Made New Berlinites feel represented for the first time in my 21 years in this city. And that, after all, is what government's all about, isn't it? So thank you, Chrislyn Holiday Wondercheck, for your strength and courage to serve, to represent parents and taxpayers while helping oversee the important work of our school district.
Thank you. Next up, President's message. I do not have anything additional to say this evening, so we can move on to our administrative. Oh, I only had two, I thought. There is? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. Katie Bathy?
Hello, I'm Katie Bathy, also affectionately known as Kira's mom. I'm a resident of New Berlin. I also have another child, and while she's verbal, my nonverbal child, I think gets the most attention in our district, and through the support of many folks in this room, actually. And I'm here today because I want to just reiterate to the board members the importance of having representation for our special needs population, which, if you're paying attention, those numbers seem to increase every year in every public school system. I think for a lot of reasons that many of you know, the supports that we find in a public school far outweigh what you can find in a private school setting. So that's a great burden on all of you, on the system, on the taxpayer, but it's so crucial, not just to the success of our special needs children, but to our community, because we all live together. And if we really think about it, we all know somebody that has special needs. And I know we know the statistics, 1 in 4 people will be disabled in their lifetime. So it's such important work. And I want to praise the considerations, especially during when I first became involved. I've been involved in the school system for a really long time for my daughter, but I wasn't really coming to board meetings until I understood some of the budget challenges finally that, were being more publicly discussed. And then, of course, the possibility of closing Orchard Lane, which happens to be where both of my children were at the time. And I'm just so grateful that we found other avenues to come up with that budget, overcome that budget shortfall, because I think, as we all know, displacing 400 plus students, and then my daughter is in a grade where they've had to actually add additional teachers, we would have had to reopen that school. So I just want to commend the work that was done there for keeping that school open and also keeping our district competitive. Closing schools, I know, is never a first option that people want, but I'm very grateful. Even if my children didn't go there, it would have affected my children at whatever school they went to. So again, the budget work, please continue with the transparency. It's really important that people understand. Things cost a lot of money. Tell us that. Make sure we understand. Make sure we understand if we have to make up for something that happened last year. Without blaming anybody, just tell us what the facts are so we can all make the appropriate decisions and keep our schools open and keep funding our programs the way they should be. And in particular, knowing the amount of money we get from the state per student and how that has not changed a whole lot for special ed is something I think we should really work on as a district, because there's a need there. That cost is only going to increase. So again, it's with great gratitude that I stand here, and I particularly thank Chrislyn on her last board meeting for all the work she's done to be a voice for children with special needs in this district, and to the whole board for keeping Orchard Lane open. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. No one else, right? Okay. All right, so then we will move on to the administrative team report.
We will start with our school update from Eisenhower.
Just making sure my tech works. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for letting us join your meeting tonight to share some wonderful things about Eisenhower. You've given us an impossibly wonderful and challenging task, which is fit all the wonderful things about Eisenhower that we can in a short of a presentation. So it's not, because we could be up here for hours, but we won't. My name is Matt Buckley, for those who might not know, proud principal at New Berlin Eisenhower. Just quickly, my associate principals, Kevin Gemignani, Christine Springer, and of course, I think with the number of athletic and co-curricular achievements, you're all familiar with Mr. Fitzgerald, and they will all get a chance to speak to some things later. We'd like to share some of the things we're particularly proud of this evening, and hope that you will share in that pride. Where am I? Oh, okay, just want to make sure. I can't read those from this far, so I apologize if I'm looking down. I'm happy to report that for a number of years now, Eisenhower has significantly exceeded expectations on the school report card, and our most recent report card is no different. We're very proud and take satisfaction in continuing to be one of the leaders in secondary education in the state of Wisconsin, and one of the leaders in all these state markers for student growth, students on track for graduation, overall student achievement, and meeting the needs of targeted groups of students within our school. These are things which we work on each and every single day, so it's nice to receive that recognition and see that our outcomes are recognized by that state report card. Getting over a cold, so I apologize if I stumble. Beginning with the end in mind, I just want to direct you to our college and career readiness information that we have on our current class of 2023. This is information about our current senior class, soon to graduate, a class that has 191 students in it currently, and their work as students while in high school. As you might be able to see, maybe on that chart, 65 of those 191 students, or about 34% of them, have already earned the designation of a college and career ready graduate after 7 semesters of their high school career. That means they've met a number of marks on all the things that we as a school district have emphasized are important to be ready to move into their post-secondary lives. An additional 93 students, or 48, almost 49% of our senior class, have met and exceeded that by becoming distinguished college and career ready scholars. So overall, if you put those numbers together, you'd see that 83% of our seniors currently have already met the college and career ready benchmarks with still a semester to go. So some of our students are finishing up their college level coursework or their dual credit coursework or their internship, some of those last markers that they may need to add to that number. So we're really excited here already only in March that we already have a significant number of our seniors ready to move on based on the benchmarks that we've created as a district. Because that's the goal ultimately for us. That those post-secondary opportunities for students are what we aim for, and we take great strides to make sure that our students are provided multiple ways and meaningful opportunities to meet those benchmarks in different ways. So from our students with individualized learning plans, accessing district young adult service programs, and addressing their personal post-transition plans, to our band teacher connecting with a college band professor and having his college band come and play alongside Eisenhower students. Opening up and having our teachers connect their classrooms to the greater world and to the opportunities that students have when they leave Eisenhower is critical and something we're very proud of. On a related note, I just want to point out that we also reach out to the community, and the community reaches back to us. FANUC, which is a corporation that develops high-tech robots. We had a couple students recognized, I think, a year or so ago for winning a FANUC robot, which was amazing. FANUC actually reached back out to us earlier this year and asked if they could use our students and our resources and their products in our space to film a promotional video for their products, which I think was kind of cool. It's a really great example, I think, of that reciprocal relationship that we can work so hard for and achieve here in the district. Of course, academic success is something that we are very proud of at Eisenhower, and I apologize that this is a very wordy slide that you're all looking at. On this slide is our goal for our students at Eisenhower and how they have performed in just a short semester's worth of time on the FastBridge assessments. As you can see, our goal is to have students in the lowest percentile, or in this case, below the 20th percentile, meet their projected growth from the fall assessment to the spring assessment in reading and math. Our students are meeting the projected growth is depicted here for reading up top, number 1, and then math down below. The numbers there, well over 70% in grade 7 and 8, a lower percentage of students in grade 9, which Ms. Springer will speak to why that is in math and reading in a little bit. But just a quick snapshot of students who we had maybe the most concerns about in terms of their growth, meeting that projected growth, and we're very proud of that, both in the reading and math. Next slide. which is the other end of that spectrum. We want to continue pushing the upper end of that envelope as well. We want to make sure that our students who are high-achieving readers and math students already continue to be challenged. So we ask and expect students to be who are in the top percentile, in this case the 85th percentile or higher, to continue to pace and grow accordingly. I want to be clear, this is kind of a challenging metric to measure because students can meet their projected growth, but still fall out of that 85th percentile just based on the advanced rigor of those assessments as the year goes on. That fall assessment is less challenging per se in terms of what they expect from the spring and the, to the winter and then to the spring. I apologize. So there's some unique aspects within that data that Ms. Springer will talk about when she dives a little deeper into that that FastBridge data in a moment. Behind the curtain of success of student achievement, which we're very proud of, is the hard work being done by our staff and our students at Eisenhower. We continue to appropriately pressure our community, our students and our teachers, and its continual growth primarily through the work teachers are doing with their student learning objectives and their teacher teams. To that end, all of our teachers have SLO goals, student learning objective goals, and all of those goals have the words that all students will grow and all students will improve in some aspect. They emphasize rigor within their particular content area, and we have attached our own student learning objective to theirs. That it's our job as administrators to make sure that those teachers achieve their student learning objectives, which ultimately should result in all students growing and improving throughout the course of the year. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Springer to take us through a little bit of some of the academic reading and math data from FastBridge. Ms. Springer, your clicker. You're welcome.
When looking at areas of growth and challenge, it's important to look at a variety of data points. The first area we'll review is our FastBridge data. Please note, typically we like to look at 3 years of data, but we've only been doing FastBridge for 2 years. So we have 2 years available for you to take a look at. So the first part is for reading. And when we look at our FastBridge goals, I think it's important to note through the adoption of FastBridge, our teachers are growing in their knowledge and application to better support the instructional needs of their students as they learn more about FastBridge. It is a screener given in fall, winter, and spring. When reviewing proficiency levels, that 40th percentile and above indicates students who are at low risk and advanced. If students achieve at the 70th percentile and above, this correlates to a higher likelihood of meeting ACT proficiency. In addition to reviewing the scores, I'll also share what our data tells us, what we are doing in response to our data, and the connection to our new curricula as well. First, we'll take a look at A reading. This portion of the test focuses on comprehension-based questions similar to Forward and ACT. We're consistently reflecting on data and adjusting our explicit instructional practices within the classrooms, while leveraging our new ELA curriculum and supporting other teachers to utilize updated literacy strategies for the transference of instruction. Now we're going to look at some of our cohorts as well. There is a noticeable dip for our current 8th graders. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, we have had an increased number of new students this year, some of whom started near the end of semester 1 and had never taken a FastBridge assessment before. And over the course of the year thus far, we have increased the number of students receiving reading-related instruction as we dove into areas of challenge for individual students. In order to address increased student needs, middle school English is also supplementing curriculum as appropriate to continue to increase that growth on an individual basis. This year, in addition to implementing the Amplify curriculum in grades 7 and 8, grade 9 has shifted to the new HMH curriculum, which is the Houghton Mifflin Harcourt into literature. In grade 9, there has been a shift for student learning to be more academic assessment focused, where common assessments match on-demand timed writings. You'll see some significant growth for our 9th graders. The other half of the reading assessment for FastBridge is auto reading. Although A reading had a slight dip in middle school, auto reading increased significantly. There's multiple skills assessed in auto reading. They are highly represented in the Amplify curriculum. The focus on vocabulary in our curriculum is working, as auto reading measures the accuracy and rate of phonological or sound, orthographic spelling, and semantic or meaning skills. You will note the increases are in 7th, 8th, and 9th grades. When again, taking a look at cohorts, as a quick review, even with our increased number of students and needs in our current 8th grade class, students are demonstrating a consistent level of achievement. Just as Mr. Buckley alluded to earlier, it's important to note that the level students need to reach in order to achieve proficiency increases with each testing cycle as well. For our 8th to 9th grade cohort, this is a huge celebration for our current 9th graders, And it's a testament to the dedication of our instructors and students, along with our new curriculum. You can see a significant jump in our auto reading scores. Our second area of focus with FastBridge is math. Math is an area where our students are consistently demonstrating a high level of achievement. Please note that students only take FastBridge in math through Algebra 1. Beyond Algebra 1, we do not have students taking the FastBridge assessment. Therefore, some of our 8th grade students are not administered the FastBridge assessment after 7th grade. And then actually looking back, we also had some 7th graders this year and last year too who were in Algebra 1. So they would only be taking it this year and then moving forward wouldn't take it. So when you take a look at our data, keep that in mind because the numbers are constantly fluctuating of students who are taking that test. When we take a look at the first one, which is A-Math, we do see consistent success across all grades. A few of the areas addressed in this include operations in algebraic thinking, fractions, measurement and data, just to name a few. Taking a look at those cohorts again, we're fairly consistent. Keep in mind this data represents a shift in number of students being assessed. For example, in the 21-22 school year, there were 190 students assessed, versus this year, there are 169 students who are being assessed. You have a smaller group. The same with the next one that we take a look at. Because students stopped taking FastBridge, 8th grade last year reflected 134 test takers. And this year, those students as 9th graders, there were only 79 who were taking it because so many had moved beyond Algebra 1. Finally, we take a look at automaticity with math comparison. There are high levels of achievement demonstrated in automaticity, which is great to see. It focuses on math fluency and some of those basic math skills. And again, same with the data. What's interesting about this one is this demonstrates a shift in number of students being assessed as well. Last year there were 190 students. This year there's 169 students. The growth here is even more significant since the number of students decreased by 21 and we went up 4% in terms of proficiency. And you'll notice something similar from our 8th to 9th graders. Last year we had 134 test takers, and now this year we're 79 test takers, and we did have a significant shift of 4%, despite those varying numbers, which is great to see. So we're doing some really great things with this, and I think as our students get more and more used to using FastBridge as well, we're seeing some great growth from them. So now we're going to shift onto something our students have been taking for quite a long time, which is a forward exam, where you'll be able to see growth in the grades we've already highlighted, as well as grade 10. So I'll hand this over to Mr. Geminiani.
So a couple things, just to echo what Ms. Springer had said. When we identify students in need based on their scores, many of the supports that Ms. Springer had mentioned are the same things that we would do when we look at forward and even when we look at the ACT. So rather than repeating everything she shared, if we just look at the data as it is, first group that we're looking at is our 7th and 8th graders, again coming from when they take the forward. This year we'll do the forward testing in April 18th, I believe is the beginning of the window. So we will have that data, right, not too soon after we get it, so we're looking at last year's scores. If you'll notice right now, the pie chart on the left is our 7th grade, the pie chart on the right is our 8th grade. It is the green and the blue that we're focusing on. However, when you compare us to state averages, the state average for the 7th grade in ELA is 37%, where we're at 55 last year, and then the state average for 8th grade in ELA is 32%, and in Eisenhower we're sitting at 54%. So right there's a great celebration, but there is a lot of that pie that we want to fill and change color. So those are some things we'll talk about as I get to the tail end of these slides, how we'll support that. If we move from that to math, again, you're kind of looking at similar results. As Christine had said, we always do very, very well in math. Not that we don't in ELA, but math is one of our strong suits. State average for 7th grade last year was 33% proficient advanced, and then in 8th grade it was 29%. So again, we're looking at some great performance for our Eisenhower students. Also, they are coming to us from some really good elementaries. So it's not just happening here. They're coming in with great skills and great abilities. So we do recognize that. Orchard Lane, Reagan, and Elmwood, as well as some of the parochials. So we have a lot of help in those things. When we move on to the ACT Aspire, so this year we're going to be switching to the pre-ACT. It is still a great indicator on ACT readiness. So our 9th and our 10th graders will be doing the pre-ACT this year, but again, we're looking at last year's data. So we're looking at the ACT Aspire. More celebrations. If you look at our grade 9 on the left and our grade 10 is on the right as ELA, the state average for our 9th graders is 36%, And for 10th graders, the state average is 35%. So we are definitely exceeding what we see as a state average here in Wisconsin. And then when you look at the math scores, again, you're going to see more of the same. State average for math in 9th grade is 34%, and the state average in grade 10 for math is 32%. But again, we still have students that we want to move. They are very capable. So many of the same supports that we identify for our middle school kids coming out of that FastBridge assessment, we will apply equally and with just as much commitment by our high school teachers, which again, we'll talk about some of those supports. And then if you have a junior, last Tuesday they took the ACT here at Eisenhower. In the beginning when Mr. Buckley was sharing our school action plan and our goal, we did use the practice ACT assessment from the fall as our baseline. Many of our students then took it again in November. So the students that did not hit benchmark in that fall assessment in September on their own took the ACT again a second time in November, and we had quite a bit of movement. If you ask Ms. Springer and I, we think that maybe just our juniors took practice is truly what meant was practice. But we had some great movement independently from those students. And of course, this past Tuesday, we did a school-wide test. But if you look at those, again, last year scores for Eisenhower, our comparison versus the state average for ELA, it was 35% was the state average of proficient or advanced, and then in math, it was 27%. And so some of the things that we've done in the past and will continue to do, for example, the second semester started with the ACT prep sessions, where we identified the students that didn't meet benchmark in one content area or one of those tests, and we had a series of flex sessions. If you remember with our schedule, 40 minutes Tuesday through Friday, we have flex. So we would flex those students out. In January, we did a baseline assessment where we had them do a small sample of questions to see if they truly were on pace to get benchmark or what type of support they needed. And then the remainder of January and February were those small concentrated prep sessions run by our teachers, not just our 11th grade teachers, teachers based on their content area. So we ran those sessions through February and highly successful, everything from the content focus to test taking strategies run by our counselors. And then, as I said, our forward test is going to be at the tail end of April. And so we'll leverage our advisory classes to do forward test prep, kind of a similar situation. Give them sample questions, give them test taking strategies, get them ready for the forward test. And that will be primarily focusing on our 7th and 8th graders. Our 10th graders do take social studies for forward, but the lion's share of the work in advisory will focus on our middle school kids for forward. I will give it back to our building principal, Mr. Buckley. Welcome.
Threw a lot of numbers at you, so thanks for listening. Being a former English teacher, I can't not tell a story, so I'm going to tell a story about Eisenhower students and Eisenhower community. And we're certainly proud of our academics. We wave that flag very proudly, very, very bright purple, very bright gold about that. But I think it's critical. There's a lot out there in the world right now about what it's like to work with teenagers, and not all of it, unfortunately, recently sounds very positive. But I want to assure you. Much like Mr. Geminiani said, that the students that we're getting from New Berlin, from all our elementaries that come to our school, are amazing human beings, and your staff is amazing. And so I hope I didn't violate any technology rules, but this is a post off of my personal Facebook page. I have a friend, our daughters play hockey together, and she's a teacher in MPS, and she posted this on Facebook one day. She just said, hey, many students, it was November, I don't know if you remember, there's a really wicked cold snap right around Thanksgiving, and she said, hey, many of the kids at my school don't have coats. If you have an old coat, can you send it our way? And so I came to school the next day, typed an email, and shot it off to my clubs and advisor, and I said, hey, anybody want to do anything with this? And about 20 minutes later, I got an email back from the advisors of our National Honor Society, our Ike Change of Mind Club, and our Ike Care Club, and it just said, we got it. It's taken care of. And in 4 days, the student groups, led by students, just because out of the goodness of their hearts, collected over 200 coats, gave them to me, and said, can you make sure these get where they need to go? And while the academics are important, and while that data is critical, we're talking about raising caring, empathetic human beings, and I think Eisenhower excels at that as well. So I think all the other things we talked about are critical, but what's also really critical for us is that we have clubs, organizations, activities, and that we monitor those clubs, we monitor our student pulse, we monitor the climate of our school, and make sure that there's something at Eisenhower for everyone. So whether you find success in being part of that club that donates those coats to somebody right here in Milwaukee that needs that help, or you're getting an A on your Algebra 2 exam, or anywhere in between, or on an athletic pitch, or a hockey rink, there needs to be something here for everybody, and that's really our goal that we want. Excuse me. So in our school action plans over the last few years, trying to show 3 years of data, we do measure the climate and culture coming from our students. It's important to us that they feel like the work that they do is meaningful and connects to their future and their post-secondary plans. It's important that they feel like there's someone here they can talk to, that they treat each other well, that teachers can do their jobs because people are behaved well. And our goal is to always be at 70% of agreed or strongly agreed, and if anything dips from the previous year, we certainly look at that, but that's a measure that we always are taking to make sure that our students are emotionally taken care of and happy and satisfied with their experience at Eisenhower. Our teachers and students serve as mentors and supports for each other. Teaching staff are all included on one of many building committees who seek to review, improve, and support a positive learning environment and a positive climate in our school. Our students' advisory curriculum and their Advisory Mondays attempts to connect students to themselves and their own academic pathways and goals, so students can see connection between their work and their future. We have a number of student committees, such as Best Buddies and our building committees and our Ike Cares Club, as I mentioned before, who do wonderful things to make sure our students all feel like they have a connection at Eisenhower. We're also very mindful that we do have kind of two schools in one, or one school that has two. With our middle school students, we're very mindful that those students have to have a really focused and powerful experience as middle school students. We pay particular attention to our middle school student success through Students of the Month programs, through making sure we have specific middle school activities like field trips for our 7th graders or our 8th graders, their own assemblies, their own student government, and their own student-led activities that they plan and deliver to their peers and for their peers. I also want to mention that our middle school students have been recognized by local media for their great and heartwarming work with our literal neighbors next door, the Elizabeth residents. Led by staff, we have groups of students who choose to give up their flex time. I think they're going to go later this week, as a matter of fact, once a week, to visit the residents at the Elizabeth residence next door, to connect with them, play games, talk, listen to their stories, be energetic, be a lively spirit in their lives, and be present with them. To that end, they also received a grant for a Forever Friends, which is meant to bridge gaps between generational and forge generational friendships. So they were so excited that they got some money that then they can go and use to buy some things to help with the engagements and the games and things that they like to do. I feel like I'm stepping on Mr. Fitzgerald's toes because I'm wading into the world of clubs and activities. So I'm going to step aside and let you jump in and talk about the other clubs, co-curriculars and activities that we have and what they can do for our students.
One of our biggest points of pride continues to be our high participation rate in co-curricular activities, and then the direct correlation between academic success and participation in co-curricular activities. So you can see on the screen, 82% participation rate, so more than 8 out of 10. Oh, you can't see on your screen, I apologize. I hold all the power too. We boast a 82% participation rate, so more than 8 out of 10 students are participating in at least one co-curricular activity. And then the direct correlation there is the 3.5 average GPA for those students that are participating in at least one. That does jump up a tick if you're participating in more than one. And actually the participation rate this year of 82% is a little bit higher than what it usually is. It's usually hovering around 80%. So we are seeing an uptick in that. You heard earlier from my esteemed colleagues about some other clubs that are doing some wonderful things within our district. Like Care Club, Best Buddies, Student Union, Change of Mind Club have all done wonderful things. But two clubs that have stood out this year as clubs that have taken a leap forward and have really energized our student body would be our Build Team and esports. If you're familiar with Build Team, it's a program that builds a racing motorcycle from scratch. You got me. I know. You got me. It builds a racing motorcycle from scratch. We have really, really involved advisors. We have really involved students, and they've doubled their participation this past year. They auctioned off their bike earlier this year to raise money for other projects that club's going to do, and they've just been a wonderful product of our students and our advisors. And then esports, brand new to our district, our computer science teacher, Aaron Chamberlain, took on the role of head coach this year. So he coached our fall season. He's currently coaching our winter season. And then tomorrow afternoon, we compete against Jefferson High School for the opportunity to go to the state competition or the state championships in River Falls. So they've seen some immediate success. They've had a wonderful time. It's a very up-and-coming sport, and one I'm having to familiarize myself. I didn't know what Smash Brothers was. I didn't know what Rocket League was going into this year, but now I'm familiar with it. It was about this time last year, maybe a little bit later in the year, where you sent me an email that it didn't have a body to the email at all. It was just an article of Waukesha South. They were in their first year last year for esports, and it was just kind of an ominous email that said they won the state championship in their very first year. So we are one win away from going to the state championships, and hopefully that we can achieve what they achieved last year. So it's been a wonderful time to go in Mr. Chamberlain's room, see the excitement that they have, and again, it's just an up-and-coming sport that is garnering a lot of interest. It's been wonderful to see. You all, earlier this year, were so wonderful to celebrate our state champions. Last year, in the spring, girls won their first ever state championship, followed by the boys this fall. And then we had 2 individual state championships. We had Faith Wehrman win cross country, and then our #1 doubles team won in girls tennis. So again, you guys were very, very gracious in honoring them. Since that recognition, our Ike dance team that entered this year as having won 3 state championships in a row in both pom and jazz, did it again. They made it a 4-peat, and they won their back-to-back dual state championship when they won in both jazz and pom again this year. So an incredible accomplishment to an incredible bunch of athletes. I think I've said it last year when you guys recognized them for their 3rd straight, that there's not a sport that boasts that they're more committed than any other sport. It's about a 10-month commitment from start to finish, and they're incredible athletes. So far this year, we have 5 conference championships in girls golf, girls tennis, boys volleyball, boys soccer, and then wrestling. And then we continue to work closely with our area businesses that see the value in sponsoring our co-curricular activities. Waukesha State Bank is now the naming sponsor for our indoor concession stand. And then the Ike soccer field is now affectionately known as C&M Fencing Field, thanks to a generous donation from the owner of a proud New Berlin business, C&M Fencing. So we'll continue to leverage those positive relationships that we already have. And then last but not least, we have so much to celebrate with our students, and they're so heavily involved in our programs and our clubs that we plan to use co-curriculars as a springboard or an opportunity to promote social interactions, positive social interactions, and a positive culture within our school building. In so many cases, our advisors and our coaches quite literally spend the most time with our students than any other adult, depending on how involved they are. So they're put in a unique position to have a tremendous impact on shaping and guiding the lives of our students. So starting this spring, I've challenged our coaches to pick a topic each week and spend 20 to 25 minutes that would otherwise be spent at a practice or on the track or preparing for an upcoming opponent, focusing on that topic, whether it be group discussions, activities with our students to promote lifelong skills such as leadership, communication, adversity, dealing with conflict, those sorts of things. And as you can imagine, many of our programs are already doing that. In fact, last week when I had my head coaches meeting with our spring sports, Ms. Hogan, who's our softball coach, raised her hand and said, certainly I'll agree to do the 20-25 minutes. Can I do more? It's already a big part of our program. That's something that we kick off our season with, and we pick topics that travel on throughout the season. So of course my answer was yes, please do so, and then I'm hoping that rubs off on a lot of our other programs, and then we'll continue that on next year as well. So to echo what Mr. Buckley said, we have so many tremendous students walking the halls of our building. They're so talented, so very, very talented, and we're so blessed to be surrounded by them every single day. So without further ado, I will pass it on to Mr. Buckley to tie a bow on this thing.
Yeah. Go one more slide. I think it just says what I want to say.
There we go.
Yeah.
I got the hang of it.
I appreciate. Thank you for letting us talk. I'm sure we went longer than we meant to, but thank you for your support of Eisenhower. It's a wonderful burden to have such a wonderful institution that's fed by all the great supports in New Berlin, and we're happy to be of service to the students and the families here at Eisenhower. So thank you for your time. I guess I should ask if you have any questions too, right? Do you have any questions?
I have a quick question. And the build team, so do they build a motorcycle from scratch and auction it off every year?
Yes. And it is a race. So Scott Kazabowski, one of our custodians, is heavily involved, and he does race motorcycles.
Very cool.
Random Lake, correct? Yeah, that's where they, yeah.
They did a flat out, right?
I'd be lying if I said I know exactly where it's at.
Yeah, it's up near Random Lake, yeah, that's where they usually, they do the race. So, because it's like the 8th year, isn't it? Like the 8th year that they started. Yeah, it's actually really cool, because the first couple of years they came in and went through the whole process where they fabricate everything from the frame, motor to everything.
So they cut everything and everything.
Yeah,
Wow.
they build the bike from nothing, and then.
To paint too. They have a new connection this year, so they're teaching the kids how to paint it instead of having someone else paint it for them. So
Right.
And our friends over at Harley Davidson in New Berlin are really wonderful partners with us in that too, and helping both with their space-time tools and knowledge as well.
Awesome.
It's been a fun thing. The first year was, they said it was really harrowing, because the first year they did it, they were literally on the track, finishing the assembly. So,
Which, it's not like the Pinewood Derby, right? And you really got to have that thing done, like when, you don't really, Don't be putting graphite on the wheels like the Pinewood Derby. We've all been there.
yeah, we've had a ton of kids that moved on and are now.
Cool. Excellent.
I just wanted to say thank you as a proud Ike parent. I just have to say the staff at Ike is just phenomenal. I want to make a shout out to Mr. Kimball, Miss Hendrickson, and Mr. Greeman. I can't forget Mr. Greeman. They're some of our favorites in our house. They're just phenomenal. Just a phenomenal school, and overall, just a great education experience.
Thank you. Yeah, we agree with all those names and many more. They are wonderful instructors and wonderful humans. So thank you very much. Right. Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Now an update from Angelina, New Berlin West Student Representative.
Spring is just around the corner, and with quarter 3 ending right before spring break, students are putting a lot of effort into their academic and sport lives. In French, too, students have been learning about homes and how people in a variety of French-speaking countries around the world live. They designed and created homes for an escargot based on what they had learned about in class, then wrote a detailed description in French explaining their design and conversed in groups about their houses. Our New Berlin construction program is incredibly thankful for the grant awarded and funded by the Education Foundation of New Berlin and the fact that they are able to get students more hands-on in the classroom with new saws, PEX tools, and electrical project templates. Last week, juniors took the ACT with writing as part of the statewide Wisconsin student assessment system, where they were able to choose whether they took the test digitally or on paper. 3 seniors, Josephine Senger, Rachel Schulz, and Eleanor Serdelek, were awarded for their incredible work in computer-related achievements, ultimately encouraging them to contribute their unique perspective and ideas to future innovations with the NCWIT AIC Award, also known as the National Center for Women and Information Technology Award for Aspirations in Computing. This past week, we also sent off our academic decathlon team to state, where they competed in a multitude of categories, such as interview, speech, math, science, social science, economics, literature, and more. After a ton of hard work, they came out Division III state champs and had a multitude of medalists, such as Sebastian Correa scoring 2nd overall out of 180 competitors, Angel Chow placing in 6 different categories, and 2 students, Vivian Din and Austin Bentrup Trumbull, receiving a perfect score in Super Quiz. This is also the first time in New Berlin West history that ACDEC qualified for online nationals in late April. DECA competed hard at state as well, where they continued to show off their dedication and came out with a huge success in 4 international qualifiers, being Amelia Sikri in International Business Plan, Sonia Dillon in Entrepreneurship, Sebastian Correa and Graham McKenzie, both in Business Law and Ethics. El Sol was happy to attend the Global Partners Running Water's World Water Day event, where they celebrated another year's work on bringing clean drinking water to communities in Latin America. There, members helped run the silent auction and marketplace filled with handmade items from Guatemala and set up a game teaching attendees about the difficulties people face when trying to get clean water in less developed countries. Senior Rachel Schultz was recognized by the school board as the 2022 state champion in track and field for shot put, where she won the state title by over 4 feet last year and currently ranked 16th in the nation. She is also a current finalist in the running of the 2023 Wisconsin Miss Basketball, currently averaging 22.4 points and 11.5 rebounds per game. Our boys basketball team had a great but unfortunate ending to their season, where they played a fantastic playoff game against Bayview, winning 72-57, then competing in a tough regional game against Pewaukee the next morning, but unfortunately couldn't come out with a win. Our NB wrestling team had an incredible season, and after competing at state, one wrestler, Amelia Poplawski, made history as the first female medalist for New Berlin West at the state wrestling tournament, taking 5th place and ending the season with a 29-12 record. And finally, the New Berlin West cheer team showed off their true potential at state, where they not only competed in 2 categories for the first time in NBW history, but also portrayed the Viking spirit when performing to win the state championship in their traditional routine and 4th place in their game day routine out of a large division of 22 teams.
Thank you, Angelina. A brief update from me. I just want to thank everybody that either attended, volunteered, or supported the Toast to Education event that we held this last Saturday. I will hold off on announcing the dollars raised until the dollars are actually all accounted for, but we believe that the event was extremely successful. So actually, Julie Cordero will be here next month to present to the board not only about that event, but on happenings with the Education Foundation of New Berlin. Last but not least, want to thank Crislin on behalf of our students, our staff, our administration, and myself for 6 years of dedicated service. You know, everything that obviously Janet has shared, we would certainly echo. I appreciate our working relationship and look forward to having you as a staunch supporter of the district moving forward. But with all that aside, I mean, we truly do appreciate your expertise as an attorney, and certainly brought that element to the board, and everything that you had done with your stewardship with volunteerism, and then again your generous financial support of whenever there was a need, you certainly found a way to make that happen. So certainly appreciative of that. Wish you the best of luck, and don't forget the little people.
All on the enrollment report that was revised, because I know we had questions about
Oh,
that
yes,
last time.
yes, actually, I apologize for that. That is also on there. Last meeting, Mitch, we had some questions. Patrick was not here. We actually did make some edits to the report so that it makes a little bit more sense.
I think we were just missing headings for those, right? We changed the whole
Correct.
format and didn't have headings.
Correct.
So
go ahead.
The middle report looks like, where is it? No, sorry, the last report is cohort comparisons, and it looks like every year we're picking kids up in each class. We're not losing them.
That is right.
But it looks like we're shrinking classes as they're coming in. Is that
Yeah,
still
so we've got
based on the
larger
middle report?
larger graduating classes and smaller kindergarten classes coming in. Yep. But we'll be sure to keep these
It makes
headings
more sense now, thank you.
moving forward. And if you do have additional questions, let us know. Thank you.
All right, so next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, which includes the notice, the approval of minutes of the board meeting on February 27th. We also have the 2022-23 and 2023-24 interdistrict agreement, which is known as Chapter 2020 with MPS. And then the DECA ICDC conference field trip application and the HOSA State Leadership Conference field trip application. Are there any items that should be pulled out for separate consideration? And do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
That was perfect on time. I'll say I have a motion by Mr. Helmer and a second by Mr. Seidel to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Motion passes. On to our regular agenda. And we have, first up, the Winter Fast Bridge results.
Good evening. You have just Brady and I this evening. Kelly is a little under the weather, so I am speaking on her behalf as well. But if you have any specific questions that I might not know about secondary, I know that she would be happy to kind of follow up with you. So we'll go ahead and get started.
I think what I would say is we've shared this
Yeah.
information with the board previously. We're going to try and keep it high level for purposes of timing. This will be available online for those that are in the audience and those that want to see it, but for sake of brevity, we're going to be moving through it quickly, certainly offer up an opportunity for questions from the board.
Very quickly, and actually, actually, we'll follow off of Eisenhower too in the aspect of exactly what they said about FastBridge and sort of how we use it for our student learning outcomes across the district and how we use it to identify students who need additional supports. That's exactly how we use this data, and every building has student support teams that discuss any students who may need additional supports based off of this data. So I'm going to have Brady kind of dive in first and kind of talk a little bit about elementary, and we'll kind of move through this quickly.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. Let's get into it. I'll try to be brief. That can be a task sometimes for me. Just real quick, as you know, we switched to FastBridge last school year. We set our goals off of benchmarks that FastBridge generally sets. Typically, when we look at our FastBridge reports, it categorizes kids as either high risk, some risk, low risk, or advanced. When we talk about benchmark, it means kids that are either low risk or advanced. So just kind of wanted to put that out there. With the exception of two assessments called A Math and A Reading, our elementary admin team looked at some correlational studies that FastBridge has done with the Wisconsin Forward exam, and we determined that students scoring in the 55th percentile was going to be the benchmark that we were going to look at just because of those correlational studies. Once we get a little bit more data, we'll actually do a New Berlin internal correlational study to kind of look at, well, how are our kids scoring on FastBridge and the Forward exam. Unfortunately, we just don't have enough data to do that. You need a fair amount of data to do one of those correlational studies. So after next year, I think we'll have enough data to do that. Really quick, the school board has kind of set some indicators for us as a district administrative team. The first being the Forward exam in reading, which, by the way, kudos to all of you. I was at a conference this last week. I heard a policy advocate speaking. In fact, we've heard her a few times. She said, if your school board isn't holding your feet to the fire on reading and reading scores, and your superintendent and your administrative team and everybody else are doing something wrong, and you all are holding our feet to the fire on that. So kudos to you, and we appreciate that. Generally, the board is looking at a few different grade levels as kind of their indicators, and one being third grade, which we all know the third grade reading statistics that are out there. We won't have Forward exam information until, we're starting to take that soon, but we won't have that until the summer or early next year. So we're going to report out on the FastBridge assessment. So when we look at third grade overall, this is a comparison between winter third graders in the winter of last year and the winter of this year. You can see in both A Reading and Reading CBM. Reading CBM is kind of a measure of kids' fluency and accuracy. And then the A Reading is generally kind of a more general reading assessment. And then we wanted to look at how kids that were here last year in third grade are doing this year in fourth grade. Keep in mind that kids to be counted in this particular category had to be here last year and be here this year. So no new kids were counted, and kids that aren't here this year aren't counted. So those are, it's actually the exact same percent of kids at the benchmark or above the benchmark. Some additional considerations. We know that third grade is kind of that really, really important year. We want to make sure kids are reading by third grade. However, we wanted to also report out on some of our other grades, just because that's important to understand too. Two kind of areas that we're going to look at tonight. One is reading skills. There's in grades kindergarten and first grade, they take the early reading assessment. Those are all teacher given assessments, no computer-based stuff. The teacher sits with kids and gives them that assessment. In grades second and third grade, skills assessment is the CBM assessment, which is an accuracy and fluency assessment for students. And then fourth, fifth, and sixth grade in the elementary school is the auto reading, which gets into a little bit more of the advanced phonics, phonemic awareness, morphology, encoding, decoding, all kinds of stuff that we don't need to really talk about other than that's what it is. So if you look at this is a comparison of the scores from last winter to this winter. We are actually really excited. We know we started a new resource, using a new curriculum resource this year. That can be tricky because every resource is built on itself. It's as you get higher in grade, that gets a little bit harder because there can be bigger perceived gaps. But we're really excited with our kindergarten and first grade scores. You can see there's actually some pretty big differences between last year and this year. This graph or this one or this thing, this chart is just a comparison of the scale scores between last year and this year. Again, scale scores, it kind of gives you, this is the average kid in every grade level and what they scored. So generally you want to see that going up as you look for continual improvement. Everybody's heard of the NAEP assessment, America's Report Card, whatever you want to call it. They use scale scores for this. Now, this isn't the same test, so you might be wondering, why is one 55 and one 541? Remember, I mentioned that early reading and early were K1 and then CBM and things like that. So they have different scores, but from year to year they're the same assessment. And then this is the A reading. Again, that's that general reading. We give that to kids in grades 2 through 6. And obviously you can see some ups and downs there. And the scale scores. Generally, the scale scores have gone up for every single grade level, 2nd through 6th grade. Second area is math. We're looking at again, same thing. We're looking at 3rd grade. The board asked to kind of really see 3rd grade and focus on 3rd grade board exam. But since we don't have board exam to look at this point in the year, we'll tell you a little bit about A math and auto reading in 3rd grade. A math is kind of just general math, and then auto math is really fact fluency. You might be wondering, holy cow, that's a really big change in automaticity from last year to this year. So one of the interesting things in math, in the math community, so to speak, there's this big argument with fact fluency on should it be timed or should it not be timed, or what is fluency. I don't want to get into that. For years, we kind of didn't do the timed thing. It was more of just getting the facts done. And then FastBridge came in and it was a timed thing. So last year, kids were not used to doing a timed kind of math fact test. This year, as you can see, maybe they are a little bit more. That's why that might have grown a little bit. Again, I don't want to get into that debate or that discussion on what's good or bad, but that's the way it is. Again, so you can see 3rd grade to 4th grade. Another thing with that 3rd grade to 4th grade, why that jump may occur, is the assessment changes. In 2nd grade, it's just addition and subtraction. In 3rd grade, it's all of them: addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. 3rd graders, maybe not quite as good at multiplication and division yet, but by 4th grade, they're actually pretty good at it. And then, additional considerations, just the skills and the fact fluency. Again, the overall scale scores, average scale scores, average student, and then our A math scores. And then finally, the overall average A math score in the district. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Sanders.
Thank you, Dr. Ranke. By the way, Dr. Ranke now. Yes, congratulations. So you know that these are the benchmarks that you have been focusing on. So when we're looking at A reading in 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, you can see winter over winter, kind of staying similar over the 2 years. When you talk about auto reading, Brady explained what both of those tests do. You can see that we are making gains winter over winter, which we're pretty proud of. And then when you talk about just breaking it down by reading, we're still looking at that 7th and 8th grade comparison, A reading and auto reading. I don't know why. I'm just looking back and forth. So if you look at cohort for 7th grade to 8th grade, you can see that there's just a slight dip, but that is to be expected with coming out with sort of some new instructional models and some new resources. And then you'll see that the auto reading has dropped, but these are the things that, as you heard Eisenhower explain, these are things that we are focusing on and making sure that we are intervening as necessary. So once again, middle school math is an indicator that we want to focus on. As Eisenhower said, if a student is taking Algebra 1, they did not take the FastBridge math assessment. So once again, you see winter 7th grade, and then 8th grade and 9th grade. So you can kind of see where kind of those growth areas are, but also some areas that we continue to want to focus on as a district. These are the comparisons then for the automaticity. So you can see winter over winter, and you can see the different grade breakdowns. So you can see that our math, not only at the elementary level, but also at the secondary level, continues to grow. And then you will see the current 8th grade. So what Brady kind of showed at the elementary level, these were our 7th graders last year, and then our 8th graders, the same group of students who stayed with us from 7th to 8th grade, as it focuses in on A math, and then also on the automaticity. You'll see that we're kind of staying similar year over year. So that is sort of in a nutshell FastBridge. And so do you have any questions for Dr. Reinke or myself?
On slide 8, I think that's the same as the cohort slide on 6, with 2nd grade to 3rd grade. We went from 71 to 71, I think it was. Nope. Yeah. But then on slide 10, it's A reading again. So that's what I was trying to figure out. Is 8 auto reading? Those are the different.
Yeah, the three different.
3 different for each. Okay.
Because you've got K1 early reading, obviously K1.
Yep. So those are the cohorts there.
Yep.
And then 2 and 3.
Reading is 2nd, 3rd.
Okay.
And then the auto reading is 4th through 6th.
Okay. So on slide 10, it looks like we have major drops in our early grades from cohorts. So from 2nd to 3rd grade, I mean, it's down 9%. And then 3rd grade to 4th grade is down 1. And then it seems to trend up a little bit from 4th and 5th. What are we doing to address that? I guess that's my concern, is it seems if we miss it early, are we going to have struggle with that catching them back up? Because I know we're spending a lot more time in the slide 10, yeah.
Get up to the, Brady, can you get up to the microphone?
Yeah, so again, we've known that was going to be our biggest challenge is second and 3rd grade, just simply because when we start something new, our coaches and our intervention folks are working really specifically on second and 3rd grade to really support them to work to build that up.
Why is that grade tougher than 4th or 5th? I guess that's what
I don't know.
Is that
it could be the
common
grade
across
level. Yeah,
education? Is
yeah,
that- okay.
Yeah, I mean, it could be the grade level. It could be, I mean, you're looking at two different cohorts of kids. I can't speak exactly why it is that way, but I do. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a jump in assessment. You go from early reading to more computer-based assessment, those kinds of things as well. So. But rest assured, we knew that second and third grade were going to be our biggest challenge areas, and I think we're working really hard in our buildings to address those.
Renee, you have something?
I do. I'm not quite sure how to ask the question, I guess. The second and third grade, what are you guys specifically doing to adjust? And how can we support the staff? And I guess the third piece of it is, what is the feedback been on the new curriculum from your
Yeah, sure.
staff?
So I think the second to third grade, like I said, we knew it was going to be our biggest challenge. We have our teachers on special assignment working specifically with those grades, making sure that our staff is implementing not only intervention support as well as just differentiated support within our classrooms as best they can. Overall, our feedback has been pretty positive on our new resource. Staff are feeling supported, and we gave out a survey at semester, and as I mentioned, it was I think our kindergarten, first, second grade teachers are feeling really, really good about it. Our third, fourth, and fifth grade teachers are feeling a little bit not, a little bit more struggle. Just like we said, because we knew, and that was what we expected. And there's nothing that we weren't expecting and planning and supporting as we move forward with it.
So when you say survey, what was it? Ad hoc kind of survey? I mean, was it an open-ended survey? Or?
No, it was a survey that we used from Amplify, from other districts that we use based on their implementation matrix.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anything else? Okay, thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
Next is discuss the policy manual approval plan.
So the board has, over the course of the last couple years, updated bylaws, policies for variance compliance measures. So we took the priority first, tackled those. Some of them were addressed at the committee level, some were handled with the full board in mind. Essentially, our goal, starting next school year, is to have a cadence where we have 2 board meetings that are focused on policy updates. One would be just a general update based on some high-level updates from Neola, who is the vendor that we use to support us in our work. And then the second meeting would be any specific policies that the board wanted to pull out for additional discussion, consideration, so on and so forth. Where we are at is we've provided to the board kind of a list of the 196 policies that we have on our books. The other main goal for this whole work around policy is not only that twice-a-year cadence, but actually moving everything from hard to find PDFs, sometimes very hard to locate. I mean, we've got them in a central location, but if you're doing a search, it may not come up as easily or as quickly or as efficient as you would want. So we would actually move all of our policies onto board docs, like several other districts do around us. For sake of efficiency, it's all, you've got your board meetings, you've got your policies, very easily searchable, or much easier to search than we currently have. But it's going to take a little work for us to get there. We've got some heavy lifting that we need to do over the course of the next several months and prior to the end of this school year, or before the next school year, I should say. And we have a proposed calendar for policy approvals that we've attached for the board for your consideration. Please note that it looks like a lot, but we've already done a lot of this. It's really just kind of cleaning some of those things up and getting formal approval on the work that we've already done. So essentially, we're working backward from having all of these policies approved by the board by August 8th. So we've kind of scripted out the timing of it. We actually are waiting until May 8th to start the first read because that's when the new board members will be on the board. So we didn't want to start anything new until then. But really, again, we've done a lot of this work already, taken that into consideration, and we've laid out the schedule as proposed. So I guess what I'm looking for, and there, we will provide certainly directions. It will be a lot easier for the board also to review policies because they will already be within board docs. We're not going to necessarily be sending you all of the PDFs like we were before. It's a nice, searchable, easy way to kind of scroll through within board docs. You provide your feedback, and we'll move forward. This has been reviewed, vetted by Neola. They think this is a good way to approach it, and we would recommend moving forward in this capacity. But again, know that you'll be reading more policies than per usual, but again, we have attacked some of this already, so I think we've got a pretty good head start on it, on the work. So I'm really just looking for direction, guidance from the board. Is this what you want to do? We recommend you do it this way. I don't believe you should do it over a 2-year period because the longer you drag it out, the longer the policies get outdated, and we end up back in the same place again. So comments, questions, concerns?
So you'll review policies that need to be updated and give your recommendation on those, like similar to in the past?
So basically, everything that we are recommending will already be in board docs. It's already been reviewed, vetted with Neola by our administrative team. Now it's just a matter of getting the board's eyes on it through your policies. And it's a matter of then at that point, you tell us if you have any suggested revisions. But again, quite honestly, and I think the president has noted this before, and we mentioned it here, you really don't want to stray too far from Neola's recommendations. Now, we do have some, policies that are literally our own, but you don't want to stray too far because that's where that release of liability then happens if we're making too many tweaks and too many adjustments to those policies because they do support us on the legal side of things.
Okay.
And the only comment I want to make on that, I appreciate you saying that, Joe, because I think that it's important when you look at these Neola policies to know that they've already vetted them through their legal departments. And it's, especially in a district where I feel like I've always tried to, advance a low tolerance for risk. We want to have a low tolerance for risk here because that's better for us and better for our students and better for our community. I think that if we can rely on some of that, intel that they've already crunched out, I think that's helpful to us. I think that it's also helpful to remember when you're reviewing it that how does this policy practically impact us? Because sometimes there are reasons to stray from it, right? If it doesn't practically work in our district the way that we do things, I think about like parent fundraising. That was one of those policies that we had to think about. We had to tweak it, right? So you have to really consider what the recommended language is, how it impacts us, and practically speaking, how it's going to work for our students and our families.
When you say these will be accessible on board docs, it sounds like you're making it accessible prior to us approving some of them. So is this only going to be administratively?
They would be accessible to the board and admin for review on board docs. Once approved, once all of these are approved, actually, check that. Are we going to move them onto board docs as they're approved?
Once they're approved, we'll move them so the public can access.
All of them, or as we go through?
My understanding is
As we
go
went through. Okay.
with the goal of all of them being approved.
And so then the existing ones that, Would those still be accessible the old way on the website with the old links?
We might have some.
Two,
yes,
would we have
little bit
two
of
for a
both,
little while
yes.
until everything's, okay.
I did just have one question about that. So but you'll make the policies as proposed available in the public packet ahead of each meeting so that the public can take a look, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because the public should know some people may want to come and comment and privilege of the floor about, hey, you're considering this policy tonight. I'd like you to consider X, Y, and Z. Because if we don't make it public prior to the meeting, then the public doesn't get notice, right?
Someone having 70 policies in one meeting.
Right.
But it's all got to be up, right? I mean, if that's the volume you're going to consider in a meeting.
We will.
We have to consider breaking that in half, because I don't think we can review 70 policies.
However you guys want to do it, but I think that.
But I'm just saying, I don't think we can.
But I think that in order to meet your requirements under notice for the meeting, you're going to have to do that.
I believe that's how we've done it. We've
That
just
it-
done
that
it in a
is.
different capacity.
We didn't do
Not
70
that
at a
volume,
time.
yeah.
You know,
Correct.
right?
I mean, that's.
So-
I mean, I'm.
I mean, if we discuss if we discuss 4 policies, it's gonna take us hours.
Well, maybe there could be a way you can have it on board docs and released to the public, but have it noted that it's not final, it's proposed or something.
Yeah, we'll work with Neola through that.
Okay.
This isn't their first rodeo on this,
I'm
so.
sure they probably have
Yep.
this experience.
So
yeah.
they'll help us through that, but
Because the last thing we want to do is have 2 policies posted. One's updated and one isn't, and they're in 2 different locations. And
we'll work through it to
Those
make
avoid
sure
that
it's
at
the
all costs.
easiest way,
Yeah.
the best way, as they would recommend. Now, back to Mitch's point. We have proposed a pretty stringent timeline. And again, we've done a lot of this work already. You know, Neola's recommendation, as well as with the administration. Obviously, we want the board to vet them because these are the board's policies. But in order for us to get to this cadence of only twice a year, we've got to do a heavy lift at some point. I don't like it either. I've already done this though. So
Why don't you come back to us with the number that are going to be proposed to us, and let's just brainstorm through that, because we're not going to be able to do due diligence on these.
well, if you look,
If there's
you can
more than
actually, you
one.
can actually, I mean, if you look at it,
So that's 8, 15, 20.
I don't know that saying the number of policies is your number, because there's some policies that are paragraph and there's some policies that are 10 pages long. You know,
Well, if we
so
want to
I'm not-
be transparent, can you now make this public so that the public can see the list? I mean, the administrative content right now where you have the proposed calendar for policy approvals, can you?
well, these 2 documents.
Yeah, can you just release that to the public so people can see it ahead of time? This is what we already did, this is what we have coming up.
I mean, there's 90 policies on there, is what I'm kind of
Well,
estimating.
there's 196 total.
I know, but 90 in that 3rd column, roughly.
Yeah.
That's most of the policies is where that ends up.
Yes.
You mentioned we were going to take like 2 whole meetings and just focus on policy. Did I hear that right? That's what you're suggesting?
Starting next school year, once we
Right.
do all this, they would just be items on the agenda. Now, they could be the only item on the agenda. We can certainly make that work. But again, they won't be as such a heavy lift because Neola will have just basically
Right.
said, change this specific word, it'd be minor changes. And then any policies that the board wants to pull out from the 196 and say you want to focus on 4, then we would do that at a different meeting.
I was sort of thinking how we were going to do this heavy lifting the first time. Is the thought, are we going to use 1 whole or
No.
2 whole meetings
No,
just to
if you look at
focus?
this calendar.
Okay, I'm sorry, I wasn't close enough.
If you look at the calendar proposal.
Oh, here, okay. I
We
see
would
now.
go through the zeros, the thousands, and the 2000s.
Here it is.
As a first read in May, having those approved. So you're going basically 3 series roughly, then 2 series roughly, then 4 series roughly, based on numbers, per month. And don't forget, you only have 1 meeting in July.
Mm-hmm.
That's why. Yeah.
It's the first.
You're looking at.
No, I didn't have.
Oh, okay. Oh, you didn't have it on.
During one meeting as a first read.
Right.
We're not looking at doing 196
That's what I thought.
I think we're all.
I mean, we're at about 50-ish.
Based on this, we've got 55 that we've already done.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was just asking Chris, because we've done like what?
Yeah.
We've had to do way more than 55.
It feels like it.
When I was the chair of the finance committee, we wrote all the financial policies for the district in my term as
Right, that's what I'm saying, like, a lot of the work has really all been done, like, this part of it
All
is
the personnel.
not important work, but it's like getting your blessing. Because it's already been vetted by Neola, admin, and then just, we need this approved by the board. We can do whatever you want. I don't like it either.
Proposal looks good.
Yeah.
I didn't click on the calendar for some reason. I don't know if I.
Oh, sorry.
If it wasn't there, I didn't click on it.
It's
Okay.
I'm not on either.
You're
Oh,
not
okay.
online right now? Okay. Okay, it sounds like we're all okay with
All
this,
right, just give her.
right?
Okay,
Oh, well,
darn.
You just need to find out what we have to do to make the policies public prior to
Yeah,
Yes,
well,
we'll work.
approving.
yeah, and before we do that, like, we'll figure out the website, we'll figure out board docs. Yeah, we'll get it figured out.
Maybe you just drag and drop.
That's a lot of work. I just want a link. Okay, so we'll move on to the next one then, which is we have action on items discussed in closed session. So I believe we have two motions.
I move to approve the employment, performance, and compensation matters pertaining to staff as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Kurth and a second by Mr. Helmer to approve. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Are there any opposed? Motion passes. Then we have our other motion.
I move to improve the certified and administrative employees' wages as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Kurth and a second by Mr. Helmer to approve. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Any opposed? Motion passes. Then we have future meetings and dates. Board meetings are generally held the second and fourth Mondays, beginning at 7 o'clock p.m. and moving forward will be held in Conference Room E at the district office, which is here, unless otherwise noticed. Reminder, the Monday, March 20th meeting has been canceled, so we do not have a meeting that day. Then Monday, April 10th, 7 o'clock p.m. will be held at New Berlin West Idea Center, and Monday, April 24th, 7 o'clock p.m. to be held back here at the district office in Conference Room E. Other important events to remember is March 24th is the end of the third quarter, and March 27th through 31st is spring break. There's no school. We're going to be moving into closed session again, and so I would entertain a motion to adjourn to closed session.
So moved.
I'm sorry. I'd like to move that we adjourn, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I would
Completely
I would
adjourned?
love to second that.
Fantastic.
We do need to go into closed session. Yeah, we can, yes.
To adjourn to close. We have to have, can you
Did I write adjourn to close? I thought it was, sorry. Sorry for the confusion. That was written
I would like
incorrectly.
to amend my motion
Okay.
and move instead that we adjourn to closed session.
I would like to second that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I have a motion by Ms. Wonderscheck and a second by Mr. Helmer. And we have to do that pursuant to section 19.851 CE and F of the Wisconsin statutes to consider A, the review of the superintendent contract. So all those in favor, raise your right hand. Any opposed? Then we are moving into closed session, and we can also adjourn then from closed session, so we will not be returning.